Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I am joined by the beautiful Elise, the horror review girl. Elise, how you doing today?
Hi, how are you? I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no, this is super special to me. I'm so excited to have you. Before we get into why we're here, I want you guys to be able to get to know Elise a little bit if you don't already. She's loved horror since she was very little, mainly due to Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Scream. She started the horror review page on Instagram to kind of track what she'd watched and give recommendations to people. And then also to get recommendations for movies that she hasn't seen either. And then ended up co-hosting You Run Podcast, the YouTube show, after becoming friends with the host, Scott. So first, let's talk about the horror review girl. What made you want to start actually doing that?
I think it's just like, so I have always, horror's always the thing that I want to watch, you know, like if I've got time to watch a movie, I'm always like, right, what new horror movies can I watch or what have I missed? And I think like it's really difficult to actually find good recommendations for horror. So, you know, I'd go through lists on IMDb and they're always rated really low on IMDb. Horrors are notoriously rated low. And I was always finding it really difficult. And actually my sister-in-law started a bookstagram. So she was reviewing books and she was like, you should start something for horror. And I thought it was a really good idea. I thought I can just keep track of what I've been watching. I can get recommendations. I can just tell people to avoid movies that I thought are really rubbish. So it just kind of came from there.
Right. And it's awesome. Like I said, that's actually how I found you. And then a little bit, the You Run podcast, the YouTube show that you guys do. What do you guys do over there?
So we do, it started with us doing a review every month, and then we started doing top 10s as well every month. So we do a review at the start of the month and then we do like a top 10. So our first video was top 10 slashers. We've done top 10 movies on Netflix and Disney Plus that was just released recently. So, and we started just doing little solo videos, which are just kind of random horror related videos. So it's mostly the reviews, but we're just adding little things in every now and then as well. But it's a lot of fun because I went on the podcast, You Run podcast, quite a few times, and then Scott decided he wanted to start the YouTube show and asked me to be co-host, and it's just been a lot of fun.
And it's anytime you get to talk about movies, horror movies in general, or any movies, it's always just a fun time. So we can all watch the exact same movie and have vastly different opinions about what we just watched. And that's what I love about being a horror fan.
That's me and Scott. We almost always disagree on the movie that we watched, like almost always. When we do our top 10s, like we always kind of say, oh really, you've got that in there? Like it's quite funny. We do have quite different opinions.
I love how that works. Ashley and I are the exact same way. So and you guys don't have to go far to search for this stuff because I have all of her social media links as well as the YouTube link right down here in the description. So make sure that you're following the Horror Review Girl. Make sure you're subscribing to the podcast so you can stay up to date on everything that they have coming up here in the future. So Elise, we know what you're doing with the You Run podcast and the Horror Review Girl. But if you're reviewing horror, that has to start for you somewhere. So I want to go back to the past and talk about how horror started for you, your first horror movie. And Elise, the first horror movie that you watched was?
Scream. It was the first horror that really... Yes! Love Scream. It's still my favorite horror, but I think it was the first one that I remember really enjoying. So like you said, Buffy's really what got me into horror. So, you know, Buffy, it's vampires and demons and, you know, all the supernatural kind of stuff. And I absolutely loved it. And I still love watching Buffy, but I still remember watching Scream and being like, oh my God, this is absolutely crazy. Like, you know, that the opening scene with Drew Barrymore, I think is the kind of bit that I always think about when I think about Scream. And I remember, like, you know, the part where she's on the phone to her mum and she kind of like croaks mum down the phone. That just always like really creeped me out. The fact that her mum was so close to like saving her and, you know, they're in the car driving up as she's getting gutted. And I hadn't seen anything like that before. So when I first started watching horror movies, you know, it was Buffy that got me into the genre. And then I started watching horror movies. It was like, you know, like Sleepwalkers and American Werewolf in London and stuff, more like supernatural type things. And then I watched this movie about just a person that is killing other people like brutally. and it just really stuck with me. It was like, oh my god, that could actually happen in real life, and it really scared me. Like that first scene with Drew Barrymore getting killed, and how, like, you know, how brutally she was murdered in it. And I know that, like, it probably, if you watch it now compared to some other horror movies, it doesn't seem that brutal, but when I watched it for the first time, I was like, oh my god, this is crazy, like this could totally happen. I was just absolutely, like, the whole vibe of Scream, like, it's just got such a good tone. It's scary, and then they've obviously got a little bit of humor in there. I just thought the whole thing was, like, amazing. I still remember after I watched that, that was it. Slashers were my favorite genre after that.
Right.
Still
And
to this
I
day.
can totally agree with that, because I think Scream, whether you love Scream or you hate Scream, you can't deny that it completely revitalized the horror genre when it came out. I mean, it completely gave a shot in the arm to horror, and horror started to make a huge comeback, because look at the movies that came out the 3 years before Scream and the 3 years after.
Yeah.
You'll see how much of an impact Scream had on the horror genre. So we know which scene affected you the most, being the opening with Drew Barrymore, which is obviously one of the greatest horror openings of all time. But what would you say your favorite scene from Scream is?
I think, aside from that opening, probably the scene where Billy reveals himself as the killer, because, like, I guess you can kind of see it coming, but, like, I just can't stop thinking back to when I watched it, you know, for the first time. It was like, oh my god, it's Billy. And just the way he flips like that was absolutely amazing. Even just that really short part where he turns around.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
No, Billy!
Oh, fuck!
I was just amazed.
And we always forget that at this moment, we watched Billy get killed upstairs. You know, like, at this moment, we're like, you know, he's dead. We thought Billy was the killer this whole time, but they threw that curveball at us there of pig's blood, just like Carrie. You know, like, we think he's dead at this moment. So I get it. Like, when this first happened, you see him coming down the stairs, like, oh cool, Billy's back, he's gonna help. And then he delivers the line, and you're just like, oh man,
what is going on?
So, now another thing I want to talk about, kills. As horror fans, we are big fans of the kills. Besides the opening Drew Barrymore one, which kill from Scream would you say is your favorite kill?
Oh, I mean, I think the one that probably sticks in my memory, other than that, one that I've always, you know, sticks in my mind when I think about Scream, is probably Tatum's kill, you know, trying to escape through the little door. I just think you can, like, we can all picture ourselves trying to escape from a killer whatever way you can, and getting stuck like that, and then the whole thing just goes horribly wrong for her. It is pretty brutal. Like, when I've watched Scream kind of more recently, it doesn't maybe look as good. It's maybe not stood up as well, but, like, it did look pretty brutal. Like, it's a very cool scene.
It is definitely the strongest garage door in the history of garage doors. I will say that. And that's the movie that made me realize I don't want boobies, because they will kill you. So obviously Scream is part of a bigger franchise now that is still growing to this day. Is the original Scream your favorite in the franchise?
Oh yeah, like, by far. I like the franchise, I do, but I just don't think any of them have actually even really come close to how good the original Scream was. I actually really like 4. 4 is my second favorite, but I still think it's probably quite far away from how good Scream was. I really disliked Scream 3. I didn't think 2 was that great either. I kind of enjoyed the most recent one, but don't think they were as good as Scream. What do you think? Do you like the whole franchise?
Oh, the OG is definitely my favorite, but I do like 2 a lot. I think 3 is a lot of fun. I feel bad for 3 because of all the rewrites and stuff they were going through, you know, with Columbine and everything. But I think that each one has something that I genuinely, truly love in it. I like how each one takes a risk. And something I love about Scream is we're about to be on the 6th film, and the final girl is still just as prevalent as the villain. You usually don't get that in a franchise. Usually, you know, you got your Freddy, your Jason, your Michael. You can argue Laurie Strode, but Laurie's died like 3 times in the Halloween franchise. Don't tell me she's an icon. She keeps dying over and over, and she's about to die again. I'm calling it. Halloween End, she's dead.
Oh yeah,
but
yeah, she's done for in the next movie.
Oh yeah, but Sydney's not. You know, Sydney just keeps on coming back, and she keeps kicking ass. So I definitely.
Do you believe that Nev Campbell's not going to be in the next movie?
she'll be in it. I'm gonna call
Yeah,
it
I
right
agree.
now. I think that even if it's at the very end, like she shows up at the very end or she gets a phone call at the very end, which sets up the next one after that, Nev Campbell, I believe if they don't get her in this film, the studio fucked themselves in the hardest possible way, because especially if it's for the reasons they're saying, that she wasn't offered the same amount of pay that a man would, that's garbage. That is complete garbage. This woman has carried your franchise for all these movies, 5 movies now, and you're gonna lowball somebody that's given their heart and soul because they're a female. That's one of the worst things I've ever heard in my life.
I
So
know. I
I'm
find it hard
hoping
to
they can
believe
make
though.
up enough. Me too. I hope that they make up enough to the point to where we can get her at least at the very end, at least have that shock ending of her coming back.
I think it's all bullshit. I think they're just joking. Like I think they're just saying it so that you don't expect her to be in the movie. But I think that they're gonna bring her back to kill her.
Oh, you think they're gonna kill her?
Yeah, yeah. I actually just did a recent video on my theories for Scream 6, but my big one is that I think that I just think it's strange for them to like so quickly be like she's not going to be in the movie, and then she straight away came out and was like, yeah, they didn't give me enough money. Like I'm not saying it never happens, but it's just not that usual that there'd be a big contract dispute so like openly spoken about. Like they're normally just like she's not coming back and that's it. Like
Right.
they've been so open about it, and it just all happened so quickly that I'm like, it's such a stupid reason as well. Like I just don't buy it, and I just have to wonder if they're trying to hide her being in the movie so much. Like there must be a reason for it. So I think
That
either open and kill, or she's going to come back at the end and get killed.
man, if she gets killed, you're gonna hear me crying all the way where you're at, because I'm gonna be a fucking baby about it. So we did talk about Scream being your first horror movie, Elise, and what that movie means to you. But now, from Scream, my little buddy Ghostface is here, and he has a question for you. What's your favorite scary movie, Elise? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Also Scream.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's still my favorite.
That's sick.
I just have never found something that has had everything for me that Scream had. Like it's still, you know, if you're sitting and you're like, oh, what am I going to watch? What's my comfort horror? What do I want to watch again? It's always Scream. It's just like I watch it like on a fairly regular basis. Yeah, I just don't think I've ever watched anything else that's come as close, actually.
That's so cool. And it's awesome
Yeah,
that your first one is still your favorite. We always
yeah.
remember our first, but for it to be your favorite still is so incredible to me. So,
Hmm.
Elise, before I let you go, I first off want to say thank you again for coming on and hanging out with me. This has been so much fun to be able to get to know you a little bit better. But we always end these with the same question. We're going to go back to Scream, and we're going to rank this on a skull count. Now, we're not ranking it on acting, production, score, nothing like that. What we're doing here, Elise, and I think I know the answer, but my script says I have to ask. What we're doing is ranking this movie strictly on how much it affected you on first viewing. So 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. Elise, what would your ranking of Scream be?
I think you know it's going to be a 5 out of 5 skulls for me, definitely. I mean, it's what's got me into horror, which is like still my favorite genre. Absolutely love it.
Well, and now you're talking about horror every day, and like to say that
Yeah.
this movie didn't affect you and that's what you're doing now would just be ludicrous. So I completely agree with you. Now, if you guys can tell, we're at the end of the third act. The credits are about to roll, the curtain's about to drop, but before it does, there are some social media links and some YouTube links right down here in the description that need your loving. So make sure you're clicking these social media links and following Elise. Make sure that you're subscribing to the YouTube channel as well as the podcast, so you guys can stay up to date on everything she's doing. Elise, please don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, as always, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.